You think you have a governance problem. You don't. What you're experiencing right now is what it feels like when a system starts moving faster than the decisions that were supposed to shape it. And the uncomfortable part? It didn't start when things got messy. It started the moment execution began. Before anything broke, before anything scaled, before you even noticed. Because systems don't wait for clarity. They move with whatever was installed or whatever wasn't. Across agencies, teams, organizations, the language is remarkably consistent. Just listen to what you're saying right now. We need governance. We need oversight. We need control. That isn't maturity. That's the first time you're seeing what you already set in motion. But look closer. Because what sounds like maturity may actually be the first visible sign that the sequence was wrong. Governance is appearing in response to something already in motion. And that matters more than you think. The market has already accepted that AI works. That debate is over. The outputs are real, the leverage is real, the speed is real. What's emerging now is something else. A loss of visibility, a loss of predictability, a quiet exposure of absent control. Things are happening inside systems that no one fully understands. Decisions are being made faster than they can be reviewed. Outputs are scaling beyond the judgment that created them. So naturally, governance shows up. More layers, more checks, more oversight. An attempt to regain control. But here's the fracture. Governance reveals its timing, and timing changes what governance is. I've seen this pattern before, not in AI, in early algorithmic trading. The models worked. They executed faster than any human could. They followed their rules precisely, and then they started producing outcomes no one expected. Not because they failed, but because the rules they were given didn't fully carry judgment. So firms added controls, monitoring, safeguards, oversight. But those layers didn't create control. They compensated for decisions that were never installed at the start. That's where we are now. Not at the point of failure, at the point of visibility. Because what's being exposed isn't AI risk. It's decision absence. It's judgment that never made it into the system. It's authority that was never defined. And the response is now exposing the sequence. You didn't lose control. You scaled without it. That's the part most people won't say out loud, because it shifts the problem entirely. If this were only a governance issue, you could solve it with better governance. But if this is a sequencing issue, then the arrival of governance is not the fix. It is the signal that something critical was missing before anything moved. Because sequence outranks intention. Always. You can intend to be in control. You can intend to oversee outputs. But systems don't scale intention. They scale what was installed. And if judgment wasn't installed before execution, execution doesn't wait. It just moves. And once it moves, everything changes. Control isn't one thing. Before motion, it's authority. After motion, it's maintenance. Under pressure, it's recovery. And most of you are already in recovery. That's the shift no one is naming. You think you're installing control, but what you're actually doing is maintaining a system already in motion. And when pressure rises, maintaining becomes recovering. Look at the patterns. More outputs lead to more review layers, more automation, more exceptions, more scale, more oversight fatigue. It doesn't stabilize, it compounds. Because you're not restructuring the system, you're responding to it. And the faster it moves, the more effort it takes just to keep up. which creates the illusion of progress, more structure, more checkpoints. It feels like control is increasing, but underneath, the original sequence is still running. This is where most organizations get trapped, because governance feels like action, but action applied after motion does not become authority. The uncomfortable truth is this: you don't suddenly arrive at governance maturity, you arrive at visibility of the sequence you already allowed. And this is where the framing has to sharpen. This is not, we should have governed earlier. That misses it. What you are now calling governance was supposed to exist as authority before the system was ever allowed to move. That's the break. Because now the question isn't, how do we govern better? It becomes, what did we deploy without the authority to control it? And that question lands differently, because it doesn't point forward, it points backward to decisions that were made, to decisions that were never made, to constraints that were never defined, to judgment that never made it into the system. AI didn't introduce the problem, it removed the delay between decision and consequence. People look at AI and say, it's too fast, it's too unpredictable, it's hard to control. But speed doesn't create misalignment, it exposes it. Speed multiplies direction, it doesn't choose it. So if the direction was undefined, speed doesn't fix that, it amplifies it. And governance is what appears when that amplification becomes visible. This is why layering governance onto active systems feels like pushing against something that won't stabilize, because you're trying to impose authority on motion that was never structured to carry it. And systems resist retrofitted control, not because they're broken, but because they're already coherent around whatever was originally installed, even if that installation was incomplete. That's the paradox. The system is working, just not in the way you expected, because expectation isn't installation. There's a moment most operators hit. It's quiet. You're looking at outputs, workflows, and you realize something subtle but unsettling. You don't actually know why the system is producing what it's producing. Not fully. You can trace parts of it, but the whole? It's moving beyond your direct line of sight. That's when governance starts to feel necessary. But that moment didn't create the problem. It revealed the timing. And once you see it, every added layer starts to feel different. More review doesn't restore authority. More oversight doesn't install judgment. It keeps the system manageable enough to continue. That is maintenance. And when the system keeps moving faster than the authority beneath it, that maintenance becomes recovery. This is where the market is right now, standing inside systems that are working but not governed at the level they're required. Scaling without installed authority. Producing without fully defined control. And the instinct is to fix it in place, to stabilize what's already moving. But sequence doesn't negotiate. Once execution begins without authority, authority doesn't emerge mid-motion. So what you get instead is ongoing maintenance. Under pressure, recovery. Which looks like governance, but behaves like recovery. Governance before motion is authority. Governance after motion is repair. And most organizations right now are repairing. Not because they chose to, because they already started. This is not a temporary phase. It's a structural condition. You don't have a governance problem. You have visibility into a sequencing problem. And visibility changes responsibility, because once you see the sequence, you can't pretend the response is the same thing as control. You can only see what the response is revealing, and that's the tension. Because seeing it doesn't fix it, but not seeing it guarantees you'll keep responding to the wrong problem. So the question isn't whether you need governance, it's this: if systems scale what is installed, not what is intended, what exactly did you install before you gave your system permission to move? And if the answer is unclear, why are you still trying to control a system that was never built to carry control? Every layer you add now isn't installing authority, it's keeping something unstable, just stable enough to continue. That's not governance, that's survival. And the longer you call it governance, the longer you avoid the only question that matters. Why did you let it move without it?